Hey, how's it going? How are you? Let's get right into it. Welcome to Reviewing Old Comics, Episode 5, Marvel Adventure featuring Daredevil, number 2, from February 1976. So, another winter or Christmas season comic. This probably was on the stands in December of 1975. This is a Marvel reprint book. These early or mid 70s, these 1970s Marvel reprint books were starting off points for a lot of people. For me, included, I would say this was right around the time, 1975, 1976, that I first really started getting into Marvel Comics. This is an amazing cover, really cool cover. You've got the Gladiator, who is an awesome looking villain or anti-villain, but he's a villain, but he's a cool villain. On the back cover, we have a full page ad for the further adventures of Evel Knievel, and we get a look at the Ideal Toy Company's Evel Knievel line. And I mean, look at this advertisement. This is a great toy line. These are great toys. I had that stunt cycle there, and I also had the scramble van. Really, really good toys. I had the stunt cycle, which isn't featured here. No, not stunt cycle. What's it was a rocket, right? What was it? The jet rocket, the rocket bike? Oh, man, what is it? There's an ad for. Swore I saw an ad for a. They talk about it in here. I mean, you guys are probably. There it is, right there. The Sky Cycle. Yes. Okay. The thing that. Okay, this was. He tried to jump the Snake River Canyon in this, and he failed. So yeah, the Sky Cycle. All right. So early mid 70s. Evel Knievel is super popular. Maybe you're younger, and who is Evel Knievel? Evel Knievel was the world's most famous stunt. What was he called? Stunt master. The rumor around the playground is that he broke every bone in his entire body. So he would show up on ABC's Wide World of Sports sometimes, and he would have these spectacular displays of stunt mastery. He was a real life daredevil. His ad for his toys are on the back of a Daredevil comic, but this guy in real life was a real life Daredevil. Look at some of the stuff that he did, or at least the action figure did. So really cool. Great full page ad. Moving right along. Another great full page ad for Cox airplanes. Remember these? These were actual gasoline powered model airplanes that were on the end of like a fishing line. Yes, seriously. And it was pretty cool stuff. All right, so here we go. Let's jump right into this. Let's say, as I often do when I'm doing not only reading comics like regularly reading comics, but as I am reading comics for this purpose of review, I like to imagine that this is the first time I've ever read a Marvel comic or a Daredevil comic, and I know nothing about what's happening here. Okay. So the first thing that's going to jump out to you, well, first of all, we know that this is a reprint. It says it was originally presented in Daredevil number 23. Another thing that's going to jump out at you is that in Marvel Comics, you have a scorecard, so to speak. You have the name of the writer, the artists, the letterer. So we've got Stan there. We've got Gene Colan. So we're going to look at some beautiful work by the artist Gene Colan and by the inker Frank Giacoia. A lot of times I don't know if I'm pronouncing people's names right, because this will be the first time I'm saying their names aloud, because I've just been reading them in my head for 50 years. So the first thing that we're going to notice about Marvel Comics and about Marvel Adventure #2 starring Daredevil is that this is an episodic situation, much like a movie serial or a soap opera, telenovela thing. This is a continuing saga that is continuing from last month, because we are jumping into the middle of a story here involving characters that we don't know anything about, but they are of a nefarious nature, and they are in the process of trying to harness Daredevil's powers. This guy dressed in purple is the masked marauder, and this fellow with his back to the camera is the same guy from the cover. His name is the Gladiator, and he's a badass, and he's kind of like a hero amongst villains. There's another amazing panel of him. So the artist Gene Colan, very cinematic style, and also at the same time as being loose and impressionistic, if that's, am I saying that the right word? I don't know. Let's just use the word loose. So at the same time as being loose, he is also very true to life when it comes to his comic portrayals. Some people don't like him. I've always been a fan. I first saw his work not only in these reprints, but in Howard the Duck and Tomb of Dracula is when I first learned about Gene Colan's work. So the next thing that we're going to learn and jump right into right off the bat about Marvel Comics is there are tons of ads. So compared to the other comics that we have reviewed previously, this is the first comic that is contemporary with myself and of my era. So I was completely used to this. Now, it wasn't until like my older cousins would pop in and would say, "What are you reading?" And I would show them, and they'd say, "Dude, what are all these ads in this comic? And why is it so small and thin? Where's Roy Rogers?" That sort of thing. And I'd be like, "Roy Rogers?" Yeah. And so they were used to 10-cent comics that were 36 or 52 pages long and had no advertisements. And I not only did I not mind the ads, I became used to them, and I enjoyed the ads. I know, it's played right into Stan's hand, didn't we? So I have this. This is a great piece. It's fantastic. It's nice if you can get one of those. I used to have this. I had this, in 1976. I would like to get another one, but they're expensive. So as I mentioned, you'll see Gene Colan's work is, I would describe it as cinematic. He uses these large panels, right? Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? So we're not going to show everything, and and we don't need to worry about showing everything, because every other page in this comic is an ad. I think I counted, and I think that there's 19 pages of story and 15 pages of ads. So there's some great ads in here. I didn't mention it, but we looked at that blackhead remover. That always fascinated me. I thought that was just strange. Be a veterinary assistant. So I can remember, like, sometimes I would have friends that would come over that would hang out over at my house, and they might not have been into comics, right? So they would like open up my comics, and I was always kind of puzzled by how they seemed to be more interested sometimes in these advertisements inside than the actual stories. I don't blame them, because the ads are great. So like this Big Jim's Pack ad drawn by Jack Kirby. It's a classic. Isn't this beautiful? So it makes me want these toys back again, except, I actually had a couple of these. I didn't have all four. I had two of them, and they're okay. Big Jim's okay. I have a Big Jim back, and he's nice to have back. But uh, if it happens, it happens. I wouldn't go hunting. I wouldn't personally. I'm not hunting down to replace my Big Jims at this point. But they are cool toys. So, as I mentioned, we're not going to go through this. I don't want to give any spoilers, so we're not going to show everything or talk about everything. We're just going to say, I already laid it before you. So there's some great fight scenes in here. This is chock full of action, right? And if this were the first time that I were seeing Daredevil and the first time I were seeing Gladiator, I would be enthralled. So the first thing that we're going to learn about Daredevil is that he's blind. He is a disabled superhero. He does not have physical sight, but he does have radar senses that were granted to him by a spill of radioactive waste and a blow on the head by a tank of radiation. I think that's it. So he has this radar sense. So like he has amplified other senses, though he does not have sight. But no one else knows that. In real life, he's an attorney, but as a superhero, he's a superhero, but people don't know that he's blind. Wow, look at this. More advertisements. I always wanted one of these mini bikes. I had my cousin had a neighbor who had one, and I absolutely loved it. And I think that my mom, seeing how much I loved it, was enough for her not to get me one. Because she just didn't want me to break any bones. This game warden looks like an interesting vocation. I like where it says protect forest and wildlife, arrest violators. I like that. I like that part right there. Conan fans, 25 live seahorses for $2.98. One pregnant male who will give birth to as many as 25 babies. Wow, that sounds cool. Some of the old comics that we'll be looking at, in the future, you can buy monkeys by mail. Sometimes you can buy like handguns by mail. This is a full page ad about the secret of teaching yourself music, like how to play guitar. And the secret of teaching how to play yourself guitar is just wanting to learn to play guitar. If you want to play guitar, you can play guitar, and honestly, you can. Just learn how to read tablature and listen to records. So you don't need to send away. Tons of action, full page, just classic mid-1960s Marvel stuff being reprinted for 70s kids like me to see for the first time. Stories that had just been created about 10 years prior or 8 years prior to this. So these guys right here are called the Maggia, Maggia. This is Marvel's fictionalized version of the Syndicate, our thing. And what's happening is Mass Marauder, and Gladiator, mainly Mass Marauder, wants to get a he wants to be a captain in the Maggie. So he wants to be let in on our thing, and as he's trying to prove himself to these guys that are supposed to be the Syndicate. Remember these? So, Time Life Books. Judge Roy Bean. John Wesley Harding once shot a man for snoring. All right, so drafting. Wow, remember this vocation? And grit. I I've never, up to this day, still, I've never seen an actual copy of Grit. This was uh, a newspaper, America's Greatest Family newspaper. Maybe it was mostly an East Coast thing. Where was I? Are we reading a comic or are we looking at ads? I forget. And that's part of the experience. Part of the experience. All right. Great fight action going on. Did I mention how cinematic and talented Gene Colan was and Frank Giacoia? Really, 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 really talented. Oh, this panel right here, this is great. So this one gangster looks like Frank Sinatra, and this other one looks like Danny Thomas. Right? Go figure. Pretty accurate. There's that Evel Knievel Sky Cycle again. But this is an Estes or a Centauri. Oops. So this is another one of these rocketing companies. We had this that at our elementary school called the Rocket Club, where kids could learn how to like make rockets and fire off rockets. Where Bruce Lee. So this is only like a couple of years after Bruce Lee's death, and Bruce Lee was huge at this point. I love that Soho Photo. That's a great title of a shop on West 22nd Street, and you could get all this great Bruce Lee merchandise, and you could also get a Muhammad Ali t-shirt. Lots of t-shirts. Be a Motorcycle Mechanic. Lots of back issues. Exercise. Look at this thing. Oh, it's Joe Weider, huh? Go figure. Anybody we recognize here? Not really, but look at these. Look at these before and after pictures. So these are the same guy, except the guy on the left, in the picture on the left, look, he dropped a whole 3 inches off his waist. He's making himself look fat right here, and then on the right, he has just worked out for 2 or 3 weeks straight and cut all the carbs from his diet, and he's flexing. No difference. I mean, it's the same guy. All right, so this is a hilarious plot device. In order to impress the Magia, the Mass Marauder transports the Gladiator and Daredevil to the center of a fake Roman arena that is a leftover set from a biblical epic, it's described, and there just happens to be lions that were also left behind on the set. So the thing about the Gladiator that I want to talk about that I even thought was strange when I was a kid was I was like, okay, so this guy is really cool, but how does he answer the phone? How does he reach into his pockets to get the keys? And even if he gets his keys, how does he open the door? So lots of things. How does he brush his teeth? Well, we know how he shaves in the morning, but you get it. So I always thought that was, because I didn't like necessarily picture, because, he's always got these saw blades on his hand. But I thought it was really cool as a kid and thought that it would be kind of neat to make. So this is hilarious. Daredevil flips him. He hits this lion cage, and his saw blades accidentally cut the bars on the lion's cage and free the lion. Okay. This is called the Bullpen Bulletins, and this has got a great one. That's great heading. You know what? Let's finish this. Let's come back to this. Here's what I would have done as a kid. I would have come back because I want to see what happens with the lion. So I'll come back to this. So the lion is loose. The lion goes after the Gladiator. Daredevil saves Gladiator and dispatches the lion. The Magia is impressed by the Gladiator. The Gladiator looks cool. So, hey, Gladiator, now's your chance to finish him off. He says, forget it. I don't fight a guy who just saved my life. You've all had it. The show's over. See, look at how cool remember how I said Gladiator's like the villain? I don't know what I said. Anyway. So, yeah. Oh, boy. We'll come back to that. All right. So, Bullpen Bulletins. So, remember at the beginning, there was something unusual, and that was that we got to see the names of the people creating the comic. But well, now in addition to that, every issue of Marvel Comics of this era had what were called the Marvel Bullpen Bulletins. This yellow portion, Stan Lee's soapbox. It's like a personal message to us, the readers. It's like he even wrote a little poem right here just for us. You guys can pause and read that if you like. It's really very, very nice, especially when you get to that bottom portion right there where he says it's an ode to us, that we're like the most important people, the readers. It's a personal shout out to us that, when you're 9 years old in 1975, you think is pretty cool, because this guy who's making the comics is like talking to us, right? He's giving us these little items. Mostly it's an advertisement of upcoming comics, but then also they might mention like anniversaries or births, or sometimes even deaths of certain artists, or like in this case right here. Well, first of all, we see that Howard the Duck wasn't a monthly title yet, but Stan is hyping it up. He's talking about Howard and mentioning how he appeared in Giant Sized Man Thing, and talking about how he's going to be a thing. Here's Omega the Unknown, another Steve Gerber character that I was never interested in. I don't think I've read more than 1 or 2 issues. But like here, so this is they're talking about the Shazam Awards, which was an annual superhero or comic book award. And look at all these famous names that won awards that worked for Marvel. I mean, there's some great names there. Marie Severin, P. Craig Russell, Roy Thomas, Tatiana Wood, John Buscema, Dick Giordano, Archie Goodwin. And then look down here. And the Hall of Fame award goes to Jack Kirby. Isn't that nice? So this is a mainstay in the 1970s comics, and this is a Hostess ad. This is a great ad for Twinkies. These ads are fantastic. Twinkies are good, and Hostess is good. Stan Lee is always going to try and sell us things, and this was the biggest rock event of the decade. I meant to do this, and I haven't. I've never heard this record album, and I meant to go search this on YouTube to hear what the music sounded like, but maybe I'll get that. I'll get to that a little bit later, and we can talk about it. And there's Stan Lee. And Spider-Man vitamins. I had these. Are you noticing all the words? Are you noticing all the words? So, 1975, America was a different place, and the people that lived in America were different people. 9-year-old children had the intellect and attention span to read and absorb an entire full-page ad on a toy for Evel Knievel. This ad is for kids, not for their parents. This vitamin ad is Spider-Man talking to you, telling you to tell your parents to buy you these vitamins. Stan Lee's talking directly to us, and Stan Lee's never been short on words. So I guess my point is that people read more and were more patient, and not going to lie, it was a better time. So I hope you enjoyed this look at Marvel Adventure featuring Daredevil from February 1976. If this had been my first Marvel comic, I would have been walking the 2 miles the next week and hoping to find another Marvel comic. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys next time.